Hi, I'm Karen. We're here at Montavilla Sewing Center, and today we're talking about the Janome HD-1000. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make buttonholes. Okay, to start out with, you have your buttonhole foot, which is this one right here. It has this little channel on the back, which is going to help the stitches that are put a lot of thread in your fabric for a buttonhole. It's going to help it to flow right through. This is also a good foot to use if you have like a satin stitch that you're doing around an applique or something. You'd use this foot. Okay, to take this off, there's this little lever in the back. You push it towards you and the foot just drops right off. We can put that down here in the accessory tray. The foot that we're going to use for buttonholes, this little hole here, you want to match that up with a needle hole in your needle plate. And then you lower your presser foot and it just drops right on like that. Okay, so to set up your machine for buttonholes, we go over to here. Now this A area is the 4 steps, the 4 parts of the buttonhole. So we're going to start with 1. And then we go here to shorten our stitch length, because on a buttonhole, those stitches are fairly close together. Now you can make it a little denser or a little looser depending on your fabric and depending on how you want your buttonhole to turn out. I like to start out with it right at the center. Now when you're doing buttonholes on a project, do a practice buttonhole with the same kind of interfacing, the same kind of fabric, so that you know how it's going to fit with the buttons that you have chosen. Now, I am going to use 3 layers of fabric. You can also use 2 layers of fabric and then a layer of interfacing. That works as well. I'm using 3 layers of fabric because I've actually seen this done on nice dress shirts. Okay, then we're going to mark our buttonhole. I'm using this nice pen. This is it's called Friction. It's actually made so that when you erase it or touch it with a hot iron, it will change to a pale white, which disappears on light colored fabrics. Okay, so I'm going to mark the center of the buttonhole and then the beginning, bar tack, take my button, and I always want to make sure that the buttonhole is a little bit larger than the button so that we can button it through there. Then I take my measuring gauge like this and I measure the buttonhole so I get it just right for my practice buttonhole, because if this turns out to be the right length, then I know how to mark my succeeding buttonholes. Okay, we start out with our thread under the foot like that, put it off to the side, and then you measure, you place your fabric under the foot so that the bar tack on the beginning part is right underneath the stitch hole, and then the long line should be right about in the center between those toes there. Okay, so we get started here and make it, hang on to these while you make the first few stitches like this, and then let those go. Take it slow down as you get to the end, and you might even want to just hand walk your stitches. Remember, turn your hand wheel towards you, hand walk those last stitches. Then make sure that the needle is up whenever you change your knob here. That's important because it changes the needle position and you don't want to bend your needle. Okay, so go to A, and now we're going to do some bar tacks. Got just stitches in place to kind of reinforce the end of the buttonhole, and we go over to 3, stitch back, slow it down as you get towards the beginning of the buttonhole, change this to 4, make some bar tacks, and then we stop with the take-up lever up at the top. Now, at this point, you could go around the buttonhole a second time for more reinforcement, or you could just stop at this point. So I'm going to take my fabric out of there, and before I cut those threads, I want to cut the beginning threads. The beginning threads have been sewn over. I don't need to knot those, but I do need to tie a knot in the ending threads, like that. So I'll take my good old darning needle here and pull up a loop of thread. This is the back of the fabric here. Pull up a loop of thread, and that's actually the top thread that I'm pulling through. See, that's what it's going to look like on the top. But we need to tie these. This is important to do that as a way to keep your buttonhole nice and firm and sturdy as you're laundering your garment. You want to make sure that the buttonhole stays sewed. Okay, nice little square knot is what I've done. And actually I'm going to take those thread tails and put them underneath the layers of the fabric. I'm using a nice big-eyed darning needle that's very easy to use and to thread. There we go. And then those threads, I can just cut those off, and that's part of the buttonhole. That's done. Now, this is our practice buttonhole, so we need to make sure that the button is going to fit through there. So we got to cut that buttonhole. I'm going to put my pin right there just inside of the bar tack. That's so that when I cut the buttonhole, the cutter here doesn't go through the end of the bar tack. I also like to just start at one end, go towards the center, and don't go all the way up to the pin. I just flip it over, reset that pin, and as you can see, I've already cut part of the buttonhole. Start here again. Make sure that when you're cutting that you cut right down the center and don't cut any of your stitches. If you're careful, you'll be just fine. Take that out of there. Then I like to neaten up my buttonholes. I don't like to have all these extra threads and stuff in there. So I take my scissors, just neaten things up. This is how you can make your home sewing projects look better than ready to wear, because they don't take the time to do this. You do. Okay, so let's take and neaten that up really good like that. Okay, now we're ready to send that button through there and see if it fits. It fits just fine. You want it to be a little bit snug so that your button doesn't come unbuttoned by itself, but you don't want it to be so snug that it's hard to button. That means that now what I have measured here, I can measure and mark another buttonhole the same way. If that was too tight, then I might need to make this a little bit longer, do another practice buttonhole, and try it again the same way. Turned out it was just right. So that's how you make buttonholes on the Janome HD-1000. I hope you found this to be a helpful video. And if you have, give us a thumbs up. If you have comments or questions, you can leave those in the area down below. We have other videos on this machine and lots of other videos on our Montavilla YouTube channel, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Bye.